good morning, everyone. Thank you for sitting in on this jury. I would like to start with this reference, if I may, from the artist James Turrell, who's had a big influence on our work. He recently spoke about his interest in the sense of presence of space, and that's something we've been exploring throughout this project. The house has been named FOS, which is the Greek word for light, but we've subtitled it The Little House That Could because we asked so much of it on such a small site. The original timber frame cottage was built in 1896 in the new suburb of Kensington on the land of the Bunurong, Boon Wurrung and the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung peoples. The house was originally occupied by a railway engineer and his family, but all that remained of that house was the front veranda, the timber panel facade, and the two front rooms, which still had their intact lath and plaster, and we retained that. Our first impressions were that the client's brief was going to be very difficult to achieve on this site. They wanted a bright 3-bedroom home with a sense of spaciousness and a strong connection to the world outside. They wanted to balance that with an equally strong need for privacy. All of that on a landlocked 157 square meters. Ironically, rather than being an obstacle, the tight parameters of this small site actually directed our conceptual investigation. So a poorly designed and constructed addition was built in 1996. You can see the living spaces had no view and little light. The narrow external spaces were little more than service passages. The house was effectively the wrong way around. So that 1990s addition was demolished, but the timber frame, roofing, and flooring were all salvaged. This aerial view of the finished house gives you some idea of just how constrained the site is. From the beginning, the rear addition was conceived externally as a lantern of superimposed forms where the roofline and the services could be glimpsed against the sky, and all of these elements would be integrated into a final composition. From the street, you can see that we went through many contemporary geometric patterns for the lantern's permeable screen, but we eventually realized it wanted to communicate directly with the original Victorian ironwork at the front of the house. And in the end, the final screen was loosely based on 2 William Morris patterns from the same year that the original house was built. This photo illustrates how the older part of the house connects with the new addition. The wall on the left follows the line of the contained Victorian hallway into the more open living space. But then it twists at the end to accommodate a larger bedroom while hinting at the difference in spatial experience between the front and back of the house. The diagram illustrates 2 primary conceptual investigations. We first explored the gestural potential of excavation, where the spaces are conceived as being removed from an apparently solid block, shown in green. In much the same way the rooms were once carved into the walls of a Norman keep, as they were needed. Secondly, to achieve a sense of spaciousness and connection, the physical volumes of the house had to be allowed to expand beyond the limitations of their functional footprint. The blue line represents the eventual line of the glass facade of the living area, but space had to be released and allowed to extend to the boundaries and to the sky. So these were 2 primary conceptual positions we took. So in addition to the retention of the original front rooms, the new addition provides living, dining, kitchen, and 2 ensuites and a main bedroom at the rear. 2 sets of sliding doors create an airlock between the kitchen and the bedroom, and they disappear out of sight. The rear ensuite also doubles as a guest bathroom while maintaining the privacy of the bedroom occupants. And externally, there's now a functioning deck to the north and a lowered strip of lateral landscape to the east, both of which are integrated into the experience of the interior. So if you compare the plans of the previous and the new additions, you can see that the living spaces have been flipped to connect with the exterior and to bring light in. Interestingly, the new addition actually provides more functional areas, but the overall footprint is smaller than the previous one. This section through the kitchen and living area illustrates how the neighboring brick wall to the east and on the right is treated as a primary space-defining element, while the glass facade blurs the distinction between the exterior and interior. Perhaps the most striking aspect of the new interior is the quality of the natural light, which is neither internal nor external, but a combination of both. The glass facade acts like a virtual boundary, while the neighboring wall with its impressive ficus actually defines the extent of the interior, allowing it to flow out beyond the edge of the overhead plane and the floor, taking the space with it. At night, the illuminated garden maintains a level of transparency and counteracts the internal glass reflections, which are superimposed over the view. In this way, the neighboring wall continues to define the interior space even at night. You can also see that transparent and reflective qualities of the glass envelope virtually doubles the apparent size of the space internally. Below the cantilever transom, frameless glass walls can move freely, allowing interior and exterior spaces to expand and contract, but also controlling air movement and therefore passive cooling of the house. In winter, during the day, the living space needs no added heating. In summer, mechanical cooling is only required when temperatures exceed 30 degrees centigrade. On average, that's only 30 days a year. A photovoltaic array on the roof generates about 80% of the power consumed in the house on an annual basis. This sense of spaciousness and connection is achieved here through a continuous slot that surrounds the living room ceiling, separating it from the walls and allowing space to leak in and out. The vertical faces of the ceiling bulkheads are also angled away and reducing the apparent mass of the roof to that of a floating two-dimensional surface, being restrained only by 3 steel blades. The batten ceiling provides acoustic damping, but also intentionally subverts the illusion of lightness. This section illustrates the different quality of space between the old and the new parts of the house, but it also illustrates how the slots were treated to achieve that two-dimensional expression for the overhead plane. This photograph by Diana Snape captures the spatial experience generated by the occluded ceiling treatment. Here, sky is uninterrupted in both the horizontal and vertical planes. This was challenging technically to achieve. In one corner, a kinetic moment introduces a sort of gentle dynamism into this calm space. The ceiling nudges towards the walls, but they bend away in response, and they do not break. Natural light washes the walls in different ways at different times of the day, and so the passing of time and the changes in the weather are marked. So no 2 days are the same, and the occupants are connected to the world beyond the walls. The sense of novelty and wonder will continue long after that new home experience is kind of past.
1 minute remaining.
Thank you. At roof level, the plan form is immediately apparent, and the independent nature of the living room roof is further reinforced. As previously mentioned, the kitchen, en-suites, and rear bedrooms are all conceived as being excavated from a solid block with thickened walls that provided much needed storage, but all remain connected to the sky. In the kitchen, sliding timber panels conceal a wall of storage that extends up to the ceiling and is organized according to frequency of use. The material brings added warmth and balance to the space that speaks to the floor without touching it. And in the bedroom, the dual height space contains shaded sunlight from above. And by deconstructing the ensuite, the main basin is located within the bedroom, while the shower and the toilet are next door. And finally, reinforcing a sense of privacy and interiority, the deepest excavations occur in the ensuite showers, where a subterranean quality is reinforced by the full height tile surface and the fact that the only connection to the outside world is 5 meters above. In the rear ensuite, the mosaic tiles sweep around the curved wall of the shower niche and extend upwards towards the sky without interruption.